Most drivers genuinely believe they're taking care of their engine. They change the oil. They check the level occasionally. They buy what's on sale or what the shop recommends. They think they've got it covered. But mechanics who work on engines every day consistently see the same pattern. Drivers who thought they were doing everything right, whose engines show damage that comes directly from oil mistakes they didn't know they were making. These aren't complicated errors. They're not things you need advanced mechanical knowledge to avoid. They're simple, common habits that feel completely normal and that are quietly damaging engines across America every single day. Today I'm going through the most damaging oil mistakes that mechanics actually see, what each one does inside your engine, why it matters, and exactly what to do instead. No products to push. No exaggeration. Just the mistakes that are actually killing engines, and how to stop making them. Let's start with the most impactful one. The mistake that causes more engine damage than almost anything else on this list, and one that an enormous percentage of drivers make, without ever realizing it. Using the wrong oil viscosity, not the wrong brand. Not even necessarily a bad oil, just the wrong viscosity for their specific engine. This happens in a few different ways. Sometimes, it's a quick lube shop that reaches for whatever's closest on the shelf, without checking the vehicle's specification. Sometimes it's a driver who grabs whatever's on sale and assumes all 5W oils are the same. Sometimes it's someone who genuinely believes that thicker oil provides better protection and deliberately upgrades to a heavier weight. Whatever the reason, the result is an engine running on oil that wasn't engineered for it, and the consequences play out every single time that engine starts cold. We've covered oil viscosity in depth in another video on this channel, but the key point here is this. The number before the W in your oil's SIE rating, the 0 in OW20, the 5 in 5W30, tells you how the oil behaves at cold temperatures. The lower that number, the faster the oil flows through your engine during a cold start, when oil pressure needs to build quickly and reach every bearing, every camshaft journal, every critical surface, before metal-on-metal contact causes wear. Using an oil that's thicker than specified means slower circulation during cold starts, the most wear-intensive period of every drive cycle. Research from the Society of Automotive Engineers shows that the difference between a specified viscosity and one that's significantly heavier can mean several additional seconds of inadequate lubrication on every cold start. Multiply that by hundreds of starts per year, and you have a meaningful, cumulative wear penalty that shows up as shortened engine life rather than any single dramatic event. The fix is non-negotiable and takes 30 seconds. Open your owner's manual. Find the oil specification page. Write down the viscosity your manufacturer specifies for your engine and your climate. Use that. Not what's on sale. Not what the shop recommends, unless it matches your spec. Not what you used in your last car. Your spec for your engine. The second mistake is one that sounds too obvious to be worth mentioning, but it's one of the most consistently done wrong. Checking the oil level incorrectly and getting a false reading that leads to bad decisions. Most drivers know to pull the dipstick and check where the oil sits on the markings, but the process matters, and getting it wrong gives you an inaccurate reading. Here's the correct method. The engine must be off, and the car must be parked on level ground. If the engine has been running recently, wait at least 5 minutes after shutting it off. This gives the oil time to drain back down from the upper engine into the pan, where the dipstick reading is taken. Pull the dipstick, wipe it completely clean with a lint-free cloth, reinsert it fully until it seats, then pull it again, and look at where the oil sits on the markings. If you skip the wipe and reinsert step, you'll get a reading that includes oil that splashed up the dipstick tube while driving, which makes the level appear higher than it actually is. If you check immediately after a hot run without waiting, you'll get a lower reading than the actual level, because oil hasn't fully drained back yet. Either way, you're making decisions about whether to add oil based on inaccurate information. Drivers who consistently read their oil level incorrectly either top off when they don't need to, creating the overfilling problem we'll cover next, or miss a genuine low-level situation because the dipstick looked fine when it wasn't. Check it correctly every time. Engine off, car level, 5-minute wait, if recently run, wipe, reinsert, pull, read. The third mistake is one that a surprising number of drivers make, usually with the sincere intention of protecting their engine. Overfilling the oil. More oil seems like more protection, right? It isn't. Here's what actually happens when you put too much oil in the engine. The crankshaft, the large rotating component at the bottom of the engine that converts piston movement into rotational power, sits in close proximity to the oil pan. When the oil level is correct, the crankshaft doesn't make contact with the oil surface. When you overfill, the oil level rises to the point where the crankshaft starts hitting the oil at high speed. This is called aeration. The crankshaft whips the oil into a frothy mixture of oil and air bubbles. Aerated oil cannot lubricate effectively because it's no longer a consistent fluid. It can't maintain the protective film between metal surfaces because the bubbles compress under pressure instead of transmitting it. The oil pump picks up this frothy mixture and circulates it throughout the engine, delivering foam instead of oil to your bearings and valve train. Additionally, overfilled oil creates excess pressure in the crankcase that pushes against seals, the rear main seal, the valve cover gasket, the front crankshaft seal. Over time, this elevated pressure can cause seals that were perfectly fine to begin weeping or leaking. What started as an overfill by a quart or two turns into an oil leak that costs $400 to $1,200 to repair, depending on which seal is involved. The correct oil level is between the minimum and maximum marks on your dipstick, not at the maximum, not above it. If you added oil and realize you've overfilled, drain the excess. Don't drive on it thinking it'll sort itself out. The fourth mistake is skipping the oil filter at oil changes. This one seems minor until you understand what a used oil filter actually contains. Over the course of an oil change interval, your engine's oil filter captures combustion byproducts, metal wear particles, carbon deposits, and other contaminants that the oil's detergents lifted off internal surfaces and held in suspension. By the end of the interval, the filter has done its job. It's full of everything you didn't want circulating through your engine. When you change the oil but leave the old filter in place, you pour fresh, clean oil into the engine and immediately start circulating it through a filter saturated with all of those contaminants. The new oil picks up what the old filter is holding and carries it back through the engine. You've paid for a fresh oil change and you're running dirty oil from the moment you start the car. A real documented case from a shop in Michigan illustrates this perfectly. A driver skipped replacing the filter to save money on an oil change. After 3,000 miles, the engine developed performance problems and elevated oil consumption. When the mechanic pulled it apart, the clogged filter had restricted oil flow enough to cause wear in the valve train. The repair came to $1,500. The filter that would have prevented it costs $10 to $15. There is no logical argument for skipping the filter. Replace it every single oil change, without exception. The fifth mistake is topping off with the wrong oil, and this is more common than most drivers realize, especially when someone adds a quart between changes in a hurry. Your engine has a specific oil specification, not just a viscosity grade, but often a manufacturer-specific certification, like GM Dexos 1, VW 504.00, BMW LL04, or a specific API service rating. These certifications exist because different engines have different requirements for the additives in the oil, the anti-wear compounds, the detergents, the friction modifiers, the compatibility with catalytic converters, and oxygen sensors. When you top off with whatever's on the shelf at the gas station, without checking whether it meets your engine's specification, you're potentially mixing oils with different additive packages. A small top-off of an incompatible oil rarely causes immediate dramatic damage, but consistent practice of mixing unchecked oils over time dilutes the additive package that's protecting your specific engine. The oil in your sump ends up being a mixture of several different products, none of which is present at full strength. Keep a quart of the correct oil for your vehicle in your trunk, the right brand, the right viscosity, the right certification. Use that when you need to top off, not whatever's closest. The sixth mistake is one of the most insidious because it's invisible until it isn't. Not checking the oil level between changes. Most modern oil change reminder systems are mileage or time-based. They tell you when a change is due, not when the level is low. These are two completely different things. An engine can consume oil, develop a slow leak, or lose oil through a failing seal between changes, and none of that shows up on any dashboard indicator until the oil pressure drops to a dangerous level. By that point, the engine has been running low for some period of time, and the damage from inadequate lubrication has already begun. The oil pressure warning light is not an early warning system. It's a late warning system. It tells you that the situation has already become dangerous, not that it's developing toward dangerous. Monthly dipstick checks are the actual early warning system. 2 minutes, once a month, catches slow leaks and consumption before they become emergencies. If your oil level is consistently dropping between changes, more than a quarter quart per 1,000 miles, that's worth investigating. A well-maintained engine, in good condition, doesn't consume significant oil. If yours is, something is developing that deserves attention before it becomes a larger and more expensive problem. The seventh mistake is using the wrong oil for your driving conditions, specifically using a standard interval oil in severe driving conditions and expecting standard interval protection. We've covered this in other videos, but the direct connection to engine damage is worth being clear about here. If your driving is predominantly short trips, stop and go, city traffic, regular towing, or operation in extreme heat or cold, Your engine's oil is degrading faster than the mileage on your odometer suggests. Short trips mean the engine may not reach full operating temperature before you shut it off, allowing moisture and fuel contamination to accumulate in the oil without burning off. Stop-on-go traffic generates more heat cycles per mile than highway driving, depleting additives faster. Towing puts the engine under sustained high load, generating more heat and accelerating oxidation of the base oil. Continuing to change at the standard interval under these conditions means you're regularly running degraded oil for a portion of every service interval. The practical solution is either shortening your interval to match your actual driving conditions using the severe service interval your owner's manual specifies, or switching to a quality full synthetic oil, which provides better resistance to degradation under demanding conditions than conventional or synthetic blend oils. Full synthetic oil from brands like Mobil 1, Castrol Edge, Pennzoil, Platinum, or Valvoline advance costs more per quart than conventional oil, but its superior thermal stability and additive durability make it a meaningful upgrade for drivers who operate in severe conditions. The eighth and final mistake is one that seems minor in isolation, but that compounds every other mistake on this list: ignoring early warning signs that the oil situation is developing into a problem. The oil pressure warning light is the most obvious one, and we've covered why ignoring it is catastrophic. But there are subtler signals that most drivers miss entirely. A ticking or tapping noise from the engine that wasn't there before, particularly one that appears when the engine is hot or that changes with RPM, can indicate that oil isn't reaching pot of the valve train effectively, either from degraded oil, low level, or a developing restriction. A gradual reduction in fuel economy, without any obvious cause, can indicate that the oil's friction modifier additives have depleted and internal friction has increased. Dark, gritty oil on the dipstick, well before the change interval oil, that feels slightly rough when rubbed between your fingers rather than smooth, indicates contamination that should trigger an early change rather than waiting for the scheduled date. A burning oil smell from outside the vehicle suggests oil is reaching hot surfaces, an exhaust manifold, a turbocharger housing, through a leak that should be found and addressed. None of these signals is subtle once you know what to look for. They're all telling you that something about your oil situation has changed and deserves attention before it becomes expensive. The drivers who catch problems at the signal stage, a slight ticking, a smell, a slightly rough dipstick feel, pay for an oil change or a small repair. The drivers who miss the signals and only notice when something major fails, pay for bearings, valve jobs, or engine replacements. Here's the complete action plan. Find your oil specification in your owner's manual and use it exactly. No substitutions, no upgrades to a heavier viscosity. Check your oil level correctly once a month. Engine off, car level, wait after running, wipe and reinsert before reading. Don't overfill between the marks is correct, not above the maximum. Replace the filter at every single oil change, without exception. Keep the correct oil for your vehicle on hand for top-offs, not whatever's convenient. Check the dipstick monthly rather than waiting for a warning light. Adjust your change interval to match your actual driving conditions if you're a severe service driver, and pay attention to what your engine is telling you between changes, noise, smell, fuel economy, dipstick condition. These 8 habits protect your engine more effectively than any additive, any premium brand, or any product you've seen advertised. Clean oil of the correct viscosity, changed at the right interval with a fresh filter at the right level. That's the complete formula. It's not complicated. It's just consistent. If this video changed how you think about engine oil, hit the like button. Drop a comment and tell me which of these mistakes you've been making. I read every one, and I promise you're not alone. Subscribe for more honest, straightforward car information. A lot more is coming.